The story begins with a man named Dalton Russell, who introduces himself while sitting in a dark room, claiming it's a prison cell, and reveals he has pulled off a flawless robbery. A group of robbers, disguised in painters' coveralls, raid the Manhattan Trust Bank in New York and take hostages. A police officer notices suspicious activity and alerts the force. Detectives Keith, Frazier, and Mitchell are assigned to handle the negotiations. Upon arriving at the scene, they are briefed on the situation as the police set up. Inside the bank, the robbers gather the hostages in the main hall, taking their keys and phones. When one bank employee tries to hide his phone, pretending he left it at home, the leader finds it in his office and beats him in front of the others to enforce compliance. The hostages are then made to wear coveralls and masks like the robbers. Meanwhile, an elderly, sick man is sent out of the bank with a note warning the police to stay away. Arthur Case, the chairman of the bank's board of directors, contacts a fixer named Madeleine White for assistance with the ongoing robbery at his bank. He tells her about a specific safety deposit box that must be protected at all costs, but does not disclose what it contains. Meanwhile, the police continue their investigation, but are unable to reach the robbers by phone, and the security footage is useless since the robbers disabled the cameras. After a while, the robbers send out another hostage carrying a briefcase with a note, demanding 2 buses and a jet by 9 p.m., threatening the hostages if their demands aren't met. As the police discuss the situation, Arthur arrives and offers to help meet the robbers' demands, but Keith declines and asks him to leave. Soon after, the robbers request food for the hostages. The police send in a recording device hidden in the pizza boxes, which captures a conversation in a foreign language. They ask the public for help identifying the language, which turns out to be Albanian. Keith brings in a woman to translate, but she reveals the conversation is just a recording of a former Albanian president's speech. Keith realizes the robbers are trying to buy time, but is still unsure of their exact plan. Dalton Russell opens safety deposit box 392 and takes its contents. Meanwhile, Madeleine arrives at the bank and is introduced to Keith, who is instructed to include her in the investigation. Keith calls the bank again and speaks to Russell, threatening that he will soon end up in prison. However, Russell confidently responds that he will walk out the front door and Keith won't be able to stop him. Inside the bank, the robbers continue to shuffle the hostages between different rooms, mixing in their own team members, while also working on a secret plan, digging in the floor of the supply room. At Madeleine's request, Keith allows her to speak to the robbers, and she offers Russell a safe way out if he protects her interests. Russell invites her inside the bank, where she offers him $2 million to safeguard the contents of the box. He rejects the offer, and when asked, Madeleine denies knowing what is in the box. Russell then reveals that he knows. The box belongs to someone who worked for a Swiss bank during World War II and profited from the situation, later using the money to establish this bank. Madeleine realizes Russell knows about Arthur's past and asks to be taken to the safety deposit room. Inside the box, they find documents from Nazi, and Russell comments that Arthur should have destroyed them long ago. She again offers him help for a safe exit, but he remains uninterested. When she leaves the bank, Keith questions her about the conversation, but she dismisses him, saying she cannot share any details. As the team discusses the robbers' plan, Keith suspects that the robbers are merely stalling to buy more time. To stay ahead, he calls Russell and tells him that he has arranged the plane as demanded, but won't release it until he confirms the hostages' safety. In response, Russell invites Keith into the bank, showing him around and allowing him to meet the hostages. Keith reassures them that he will get them out soon. He then speaks with Russell, offering 2 choices. Either he arrests him after the robbery, or Russell can walk out now and end it peacefully. Russell declines both options. During their conversation, Keith reveals that he knows the robbers never really wanted a plane, realizing it was just a tactic to keep the police occupied. Russell then asks about Keith's personal life, and Keith shares that he wants to get married, but lacks the financial means. Before leaving, Keith intentionally provokes a fight with Russell in an attempt to unmask him, but Russell's associates intervene. After leaving the bank, Keith tells Mitchell that he started the fight on purpose to gauge the robbers' intentions and believes they won't hurt anyone. However, he is soon proven wrong when Russell calls, instructing the police to point their cameras at the second floor, where they execute a hostage in front of them. Furious, Keith rushes back to the bank, where Russell blames him for the killing and threatens to kill more hostages if their demands aren't met. Keith's superior arrives, angry over the hostage's death, and removes Keith from the case, taking charge of the situation. The police then plan to raid the bank, intending to use rubber bullets to subdue everyone until they can identify the robbers. Keith begins to suspect that the robbers have some way of anticipating the police's moves and can't just be sitting in the dark. Returning to the van, he checks the briefcase the robbers had sent earlier and discovers they planted a listening device, allowing them to monitor the police's every move. He immediately orders the team to abandon their plan, but they decide to proceed anyway. Hearing about the impending raid, the robbers use smoke grenades and emerge from the bank with the hostages. The police surround them, and Keith instructs his team to interrogate everyone, believing some of the robbers might be disguised as hostages. As the hostages are taken away, the police enter the bank to assess what was stolen, only to find that the robbers hadn't touched the money. Keith collects the hostages' cell phones, but he's left puzzled, unable to understand the motive behind the robbery if nothing was taken. The police also discover fake guns and props, realizing that the robbers never intended to harm anyone and staged the execution to create fear. Despite thoroughly investigating each hostage, the police can't identify any as the robbers. Keith meets with his superior and explains that none of the hostages were involved, as they all had witnessed each other throughout the incident. With no clues or evidence of a robbery, he is instructed to close the case due to the lack of proof. Although he agrees, Keith remains determined to uncover the truth. He reviews the bank's records and discovers that safety deposit box 392 is not listed anywhere, prompting him to ask Mitchell for help with a background check. Keith also confronts Madeleine, presenting an incriminating recording he made when they first met, where he was pressured to cooperate with her. After hearing it, Madeleine reveals Arthur's dealings with the Nazis, but urges Keith to keep it confidential if he values his job. Later, Madeleine informs Arthur that Keith is not giving up on the case. Arthur asks about the envelope, and she explains that the gang leader has it and may use it against him in the future. During their conversation, she notes that the robbers didn't steal any money, but she believes they were targeting the contents of the box, which must be highly valuable. After some pressure, Arthur confesses that the box contained loose diamonds and a ring that belonged to the wife of his Jewish friend, whom he betrayed to the Nazis for a large sum of money. Madeleine learns the full extent of his crimes, but agrees to keep it a secret as part of their deal. Russell continues his monologue, claiming to be in a cell, but it's revealed he was actually hiding behind a fake wall built in the bank's supply room during the robbery. He retrieves the stolen diamonds from the safety deposit box and exits the secret space a week later. His team, who had blended in with the hostages and remained unidentified by the police, waits for him outside the bank. They see Keith and Mitchell entering the bank and inform Russell, but he reassures them he will leave unnoticed. Disguised, he walks out and even bumps into Keith, who doesn't recognize him. Russell rejoins his team, and they celebrate their successful heist. Meanwhile, Keith obtains search warrants and inspects safety deposit box 392, where he finds a diamond ring and a note that reads, "Follow the ring." Keith and Mitchell confront Arthur about the ring, but he doesn't reveal anything. Later, Keith convinces Madeleine to report Arthur to the War Crimes Office. At home, Keith finds a diamond in his pocket, realizing Russell slipped it there during their encounter at the bank entrance. Remembering Russell's claim that he would walk out the front door, Keith smiles in admiration. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.